Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So I am Jamie Weiland. This is
Dr. Cullyn Consales.
the Dr. Cullyn Consales from Integrative Health and Wellness. And so we get to talk to you guys today about pain. And so if during this session you guys have any questions, we would love to get to them and answer them for you as best we can, he can. But we have some questions already, and I guess we really wanted to pick this topic because this is a lot of the people that are coming in to see you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not just back pain.
No, all sorts of pain. You have headache, stomach pain, knee pain, back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, finger pain, all kind of pain.
Okay, so anybody who thinks of a chiropractor, you typically think I would just want to come to a chiropractor if I had any back ailments, but that's really, you're a lot more than that.
Yeah, we treat the whole body. The whole body's a system. We work with it as a system, heal it up as a system, and if you treat it that way and restore the dysfunction of the body, then your symptoms, no matter what they are, go away.
So one of the questions, and like I said, if you guys have any questions, just throw them at us. We'll try to get to everybody's. A common question I know is, when should we put heat on something, and when should we put cold stuff on something?
So that's a good question. I primarily like cold or ice. But for heat, it's really good for muscle stiffness and joint stiffness. If you have any pain, though, linked to that, you want to use ice. If you have inflammation or swelling, you want to use ice. And if something's like an acute condition, which means like you just injured it or damaged some tissue, you want to use ice. So general rule for ice is you want to put like a cold pack on it and put one paper towel over top of that cold press, and then you leave it on there for 15 to 20 minutes. You should go through the stages of it being icy or achy, burning, and then go numb. And whenever you're feeling the numb is when you're getting the actual benefit or the deactivation of the inflammatory processes going on in the skin or underneath the skin itself. So as a general rule, ice. If you have disc pain, though, you want to avoid heat like the plague, because that'll make it feel better for a few minutes and then it'll flare up and you'll make your condition much worse. So always ice if you have disc conditions in your back.
So what actually causes the pain?
So pain is generated from inflammation in the body, and inflammation can come from a million different things. But essentially, let's say you have either an infection or a joint that's not moving properly. Let's use the joint. So if a joint isn't sliding the way that it should, it's going to cause trauma on the sliding surfaces of the joint themselves. And if there's trauma there, if the joint isn't sliding, it's not rubbing properly, you're going to have damage to the tissue, and the first thing the body will work to do is clean up that damaged tissue, and it uses the immune system to do that. And as soon as the immune system gets in there and you have white blood cells that eat up dead cells and dead tissue and bacteria and fungus and all sorts of stuff, as soon as those guys get in there, you have an increased amount of blood or water there, and that generates inflammation, which generates a lot of the pain that you feel. So inflammation primarily comes from an immune response and sometimes chemical toxins or heavy metals or things like that in the body.
And so how would I know if I had like these toxins in my body? That's something I could come here for?
Yep, general detoxes are very good, but yeah, to get to the specifics of figuring out what you have in your system, in your body, we address that. We can actually see what you have in each organ system. If you say your liver isn't working properly, we can see why. What's in the area, like a chemical, heavy metal, bacteria, parasite, fungus, anything like that, and then work to eliminate that through whole food, organic nutrients, herbs, or homeopathy.
And if I didn't know that my liver had overburdened with toxins, you could tell me that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have to know that coming in here.
Yeah, there aren't many ways that you can know it, but if your liver wasn't functioning properly, some of the symptoms of that could be skin irritation. You could be, actually, this time of year, really sensitive to pollen and have a lot of allergies. You can actually have a lot of sinus congestion in general, not necessarily associated with allergies, but like sinus pressure. What your body will actually do is use your sinuses as a pressure release valve. So if your liver's backed up and can't do its job, or your kidneys or your lungs, which are your primary detoxification organs, your body's going to try to push that stuff, that gunk up through the sinuses to come out. And people with chronic sinusitis, things like that, is usually what's going on. There's an underlying toxin that the body just can't get rid of.
So when you were talking about pain and you use different supplements and foods to help, so what are some foods that we people in pain can avoid and consume?
Okay, so avoid, no one really likes this, but it's sugar. So sugar causes inflammation and pain in the body, and it's almost, there's an immediate response of inflammation. As soon as sugar hits the tongue, within 5 seconds later, there's inflammation that's shown to occur in the brain and in the liver itself. It's going to inflame everything in the body in general. So if you have an inflammatory process going on, there's going to be an increased amount of inflammation that's going to travel to that area where you already have inflammation. It's going to get worse, and it'll feed infections, and that'll of course increase inflammation too. So you want to avoid sugar. Grains will also do that. So grains will break down into sugar rapidly unless they're prepared the way they traditionally were, which were sprouted, soured, or soaked, and you eat them after they've been ground, because as soon as you eat them, well, if you eat them as soon as they're ground, then they're going to have all the nutrients and minerals and enzymes needed to digest them properly. And if that's not present, then you're going to inflame the intestinal tract, which then would inflame essentially the rest of the body, because things are going to move in and out of the intestinal tract that shouldn't, because it's going to become more permeable. So what was the second part to that?
So what to avoid and what to consume.
What to consume. So foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B3, B6, zinc, and magnesium. So good sources would be good quality fish, a good quality fish oil, help. For the bees, liver's very good. You're probably not going to eat a lot of liver, so there's something called nutritional yeast that is actually very good. It kind of tastes like cheese, and you can buy that at the grocery store, put it on different foods. It's like salads, things like that. That's very high in B vitamin. Zinc, you can find that in like pumpkin seeds. That would be high in zinc. And then magnesium is going to be any green leafy vegetables. Just consume a lot of those. And also garlic, onions, they're going to be anti-inflammatory. Ginger, turmeric, and boswellia are also very good things. As a medication, those two last ones are more like a medication, not so much a food that's going to stop an inflammatory process.
So we have a question. What is good for morning pain and joint stiffness when getting out of bed? I do try to stretch, but sometimes hurt.
Okay, so in the morning, if you have pain or inflammation in the morning, it's coming from one of two areas. It's either your digestive system or your lymphatic system, which is your garbage disposal system. And to explain these as briefly as I can, if your bowels aren't moving the way they should, whenever you're laying down, what happens is the movement of your intestinal tract slows, and when we're up and moving, it actually increases. It's called peristalsis. It's like the movement like this of the large and small intestine, and it keeps food and things moving through there. So when we're laying down, that should be moving. If you're backed up and it's not, toxins are going to be released into the system. They're actually going to leach out of the intestinal tract, get into the body, and then you're going to have more pain in the morning or after sitting for a long period of time. Secondly, would be the lymphatic system. Whenever we move, we pump the toxins out of our body through the lymphatic system. So whenever we're laying for a period of time, we're not moving, those toxins stay stagnant. And if you have a blockage in the lymphatic system or a pinching down of two lymphatic ducts, which are right here, then there's going to be a slowed lymphatic drainage process, which is going to create more inflammation. You're going to be more stiff in the morning. So one thing, get the bowels moving, eat properly, don't eat a lot of grains and bread and cheese because that'll really back you up. And then you can do a door stretch that will actually open up these lymphatic ducts and help things to move a little bit. Drink a lot of water. And if you still have trouble, then we need to fix the position of the shoulder because that's what will pinch down on those ducts.
Perfect. Okay, so we have somebody else that would like to know, do you get abdominal pain when you have a toxin overload?
You can, yeah. It would depend on how you're in the abdomen. If it's in like the intestinal tract, then it's going to be you could have eaten something that your body hasn't been able to break down 100%, or you can have flora or the good bacteria, probiotics in your intestinal tract may not be present 100%. So usually, if you're getting pain in the abdomen, you're going to have it's going to be an enzyme thing. So whenever we eat foods that are in their natural state, they contain the enzymes needed to break them down and to digest them properly. If we eat processed foods, the action of processing a food is to take the enzymes out of it, and enzymes break things down, take the enzymes out of it so the living material of the food so they can stay on the shelf longer. So if we're eating things that don't contain the enzymes needed to break them down properly in our body needs to work extra hard with its own enzymes to break it down, and over time we run out of enzymes and we can't digest our food, so we can get more pain that way.
I totally got that.
Well, good. At least someone understands.
I love that he explains this in a way that I can relate without a degree in a doctorate, right? Like, that's just amazing. Okay, so I would like to know, so you had mentioned like you need, the good, what was it, omegas.
Yeah.
So is GNC a good place to get a good
Fish
omega?
oil. No. And the thing is unless they sell, I personally like Nordic Naturals. I think they're a very good, high quality company. But the thing is with omega-3s and fish oils is you want one that matches your chemical profile. And what I mean by that, if you have some fish oil, if you look at the back of the bottle, it'll say DHA and EPA on it, which are two chemicals that are found in fish oil. And your body needs a certain ratio of EPA and DHA, and everyone's a little bit different. So they both do different things within the body. We won't really get into that. But that's one thing that we can test for and figure out for you. But just a general balanced one would be a good way to start. And again, I like Nordic Naturals. They test well for a lot of patients, and people do well with them.
Okay, wonderful. So how about, I know there are a lot of people out there who have been told that their only alternative to getting pain relief is through surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that that is their only option?
Absolutely not. So my general rule and idea of way of thinking of things is, if you go to a medical doctor, the tool that they have to treat you with is medicine. If you go to a surgeon, you're going to be told that you have surgery, or hopefully they're integrous enough to tell you, look, this isn't the option for you right now. If you come to a different doctor, someone that's more holistic, they're going to have many tools at their exposure and have been educated in many different ways of healing the body. So what we would do, let's take shoulder, for instance, because that's a common surgery. Unless something's completely torn and ripped off, things can be repaired. And what you want to do is you want to stabilize the joint by actually correcting the muscle function of all the muscles that connect to stabilize the joint so that it slides properly. And then you want to give it the nutrients it needs to heal and repair. You want to look at the wiring to the area itself. And there are many other things that you can do to just give it what it needs to do its job properly. If things are sliding properly and pulling properly and there's no compensation going on, like if a muscle turns off and another needs to compensate, you're less likely to tear muscles. So you want to balance out the system, which is something that we do here. Surgery is always a last resort. Always check everything out, try everything you can before you go that route.
So what about, I know a lot of people who are, close to the surgery plan, or, are using some other different forms of medicine, are given steroids.
Yeah.
So how is it that is a help towards pain? What does that do for us?
So steroids turns off the inflammatory process, but that's not necessarily a good thing, because inflammation, like we just discussed, it cleans up the dead tissue. So you can't have a bunch of dead tissue. It's like a bunch of sandpaper just stuck in the joint. It's going to rub and rub and rub and get worse and worse and worse. So whenever that steroid wears off, a lot of times people end up feeling worse because they've been moving the joint more so than what they should have been. So pain's a warning sign. It keeps you from doing the things that are going to damage the tissue even more. So pain's not necessarily a bad thing. The problem with a steroid is, yeah, it's going to make you feel better. Like my personal story, I had nasty skin stuff going on whenever I was a teenager throughout my early 20s. The only treatment was a steroid, and I chose not to do it because a steroid turns off your body's immune system, so your body's ability to fight infection diminishes, and it also will diminish, actually pull calcium from the bones and demineralize your bones, so it's going to make your bones weaker. And that is, if you get a steroid injection in the area, the bones are being affected by that and actually becomes a weaker area as far as the skeleton is whatchamacallit? That is concerned. That's the word we're looking for. So yeah, I would avoid them if you can and look to some of the anti-inflammatory foods. A healthy tip too that we kind of talked about as our little teaser to the video is if someone has shoulder pain, vitamin C clinically we found helps really well, and you want a whole food source of vitamin C. If you look at your bottle and it says ascorbic acid, it's like the eggshell of a vitamin C complex, which doesn't do much. So good sources would be actually, it would be red bell peppers is very high, and also pine needle tea. So just grab some pine needles from outside on your tree, as long as it hasn't been sprayed with anything, and you just put it in hot water, let it steep, and then strain out the needles and drink it, and it's actually pretty good. And it increases your vitamin C, which increases your collagen production in your body, which helps to build and repair joints.
Pine needle tea.
Pine needle tea. Try it out.
So what are your thoughts? I know a lot of people are using CBD oil now as a natural replacement to steroids. Mm-hmm. What would you tell somebody about CBD oil?
I think it's better than steroids, but so oils are very powerful things, and they can work very well, but they get into the system and absorb very rapidly. And the thing with CBD oil is it's still, although it doesn't have THC like marijuana, it still has some of the negative attributes of that plant, and there are some. It is, so think of like, they're calling it medical marijuana. They call it medical marijuana because herbs are like medicines, and that's what most medicines are drawn from. And they'll take a piece of an herb or a little chemical within an herb that works really well, and then synthesize it or produce it in a lab and make $1 billion off of it. So herbs are our medicines, and marijuana is an herb, and everything that comes from marijuana is an herb, and it's a medication. Herbs can heal, but they also have a trade-off. Whenever you provide the body with an herb or give it an herb, it's going to upregulate or turn things on and then shut some things off. And what it does with the human body is, and it's not THC, it's the other chemicals within that, is it'll affect your hypothalamus, which is your master controller of your hormonal system, and actually will elevate estrogen levels to a certain degree. So it will affect the body negatively. If you do it for a short period of time, there's really no issue with it, but just remember, it's not getting to the root cause of the problem, it's a Band-Aid. It's not healing you.
Okay, so we're going to just get into a couple of specifics here. So do you have any suggestions for someone experiencing restless leg syndrome?
That one is tricky. I would say for that you want to avoid caffeine, alcohol. Those two will affect it. You want to increase your B vitamin intake, and again, you want that from a whole food source. It's either going to be, you can look some up online, see if you like another food, but it's going to be the nutritional yeast or good quality liver from a grass-fed, pasture-raised animal, or calcium and magnesium. Those two need to be in balance in the body. So you shouldn't take a calcium or magnesium supplement on its own unless you're really deficient in one or the other, because they need to be balanced. And a lot of people will throw their calcium magnesium balance out of whack, and it can generate problems in the body. So the best sources, if you're going to take them alone, would be magnesium lactate or calcium lactate. Those two are easily absorbed into the body. They have nothing to do with dairy, being that it says lactate in it. but you want a balanced supplement that can help you with that. But the best food to eat would actually be kale, because it contains both of them. So choke it down, it's worth it.
I love that you know how awful what you're saying for us to do is.
It's not that bad.
I do appreciate that he's not sitting here saying it's the most wonderful food ever and you can't wait to eat it.
So it's good in some things.
So Dr. Sarah's actually pretty good at hiding kale in some smoothies, right?
Yeah, she hides it very well.
So just as a little plug there, she does have some of her recipes on our YouTube channel at Integrative Health and Wellness, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just a really great way to hide those, especially if you have kids and you want to slip them some of the good stuff without them knowing, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we did have a question.
Oh, I see one on there too, from Leanne. Yeah, I can answer it because it's right.
Go for it.
Right. Okay, so Leanne said, is it best to take omega-3 supplements with food or an empty stomach? That's a really good question. I would take it with food because it essentially is a food. And actually, the best time to do that would be in the evening, because your body's going to is best at utilizing fats for energy and fuel and nutrients in the evening. So take it during dinner time, whatever amount is that you're prescribed or that you choose to take. I would take it with food. And if you have a fish oil that isn't, like, you're having trouble breaking down and you kind of burp it up and you don't like the taste of fish, then put it in the freezer. And if you put it in the freezer, your body will still break it down, metabolize it, but you won't burp it up.
Perfect. Somebody asked us a question online was, how do you help someone with fibromyalgia, especially when they have pain in their legs?
Okay, so fibromyalgia, in my opinion, and don't get upset with me, is a complete garbage term. So it describes a bunch of symptoms that you may have, but fibromyalgia, the doctors actually told you what you already have in the language of Latin. So fibro is fiber, myo is muscle, and algia is pain. So we're talking about muscle fiber pain. So they've told you had muscle fiber pain. Well, that's great. How do you treat it? They put a label on it. It makes you feel better, I guess, for a little while, but you're still suffering with the condition. So for fibromyalgia, I find that the parathyroid gland, which balance your blood calcium levels, actually a lot of time is affected by that. And you need to adjust what's wired to the parathyroid as well, because how the body works, you have an organ system that's wired to a muscle, that's wired to an area of the skin, that's wired to an area of the spine. Everything's linked together. So you need to address all the factors associated with the parathyroid first, and the muscle associated with it would be something called your levator scapular muscle, which is right there, which connects to which can disrupt the nervous system's function all around if it's not functioning properly. I would also maybe eat some foods that are balanced in calcium and magnesium, because we're dealing with blood calcium levels, and a lot of times what we find is that there's heavy metal toxicity in the body, and it's actually in the central nervous system, meaning the brain or spinal cord, and that needs to be removed. A lot of times it's mercury, because that easily penetrates and can get into there. And there are a number of different heavy metals, but we work to gently remove that from the nervous system tissue and allow the body to function the way that it should.
So we have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask the final question before we wrap things up, and it's going to be, can stress cause pain?
Stress can cause pain, and there are actually 3 types of stress that you can experience. So you have structural stress, like you fall and injure yourself, so structural damage. There's chemical stress, and then there's mental and emotional stress. So all three of those play a role into, your level of pain or presentation of symptoms. So everyone has, you can think of it as like a threshold, what they can tolerate. And stress accumulates and it builds up. It builds on top of one another, each different form of stress, until you go above your threshold. Once you're above your threshold, your body throws off a symptom, and a symptom can be anything. It can be migraines, headaches, back pain, neck pain. It could be anything in the body. But what we need to do, and it often presents as pain, but what we need to do is we need to drop that stress down below the threshold so that you no longer experience your symptom like pain. And then we drop it down further so that whenever you are under more stress, you don't go above the threshold, like, you know, you're at work and you have a lot of stress, and then you usually get migraines after work, so that you don't get that migraine after work and it sends you above that threshold level. So we want to keep you down at this level, and we want to do everything we can by detoxifying the body, by healing it up structurally, and by fixing you mentally and emotionally, like subconsciously, working with your body to alleviate all the stress so that your body can do its job and do what it needs to do to function the way it should.
So I just want to let everybody know that we do classes here every week. Actually, Dr. Sarah Vivona is teaching, who you guys saw on live last week, is actually teaching a class right here in our office. We do that every Wednesday to teach you guys you know, how they do what they do, why it works, and if it can help you. So it's such a really nice experience for you guys to get to personally know both of the doctors one-on-one. Next week, I'm going to get to interview Dr. Sarah again. Actually, we're going to talk about weight loss. So that'll be a fun one. And then after that, I'm going to get Dr. Cullyn to come back, and we're going to talk about exhaustion and thyroid support, which is one of my favorite things to talk about, because if any of you don't know, it's because of this man that I have had my last thyroid med the day before Mother's Day of last year. So how awesome is that? I love it.
It's good stuff.
It's such good stuff. And so if anybody's interested in learning more about us, you guys are more than welcome. The class on the Wednesday nights are free. Please send me any questions that you guys have for him and Dr. Sarah in the next coming weeks. Our number here is 724-205-6260. You'll get me when you call in. I'll be able to help you as best I can. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.